Hello, Natalie. That was very
Hello.
smooth.
Hello.
Hi, the technology worked tonight. You're looking very nice.
How are
So
we this evening?
I am good, although the children are upstairs and my husband's not here, so fingers crossed they don't come in. Let's hope for the best. So welcome, Natalie, and this is our Serene Sorter Story series where I've invited people who've already learned the system and to find out a bit more from them about what it means to them and what they've learned and has it had any benefits, because of course I can talk about this for hours on end till the cows come home, but much better to hear it from people who've done it and whether or not it's been useful to those guys. So maybe Natalie, you could just firstly just give a bit of background to your home situation, who's at your house and jobs, etc., for a bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a teacher and a mum. I've got two young boys, 4 and 6. So obviously they are make quite a bit of mess. I'm also personally a very messy person. I've historically liked to say it's because I'm quite creative.
I wish I could say that reason.
And my husband is the same. So we have since we've lived together, which is a long time now, the word that people use to describe our home is often welcoming and lived in, and yeah.
Two great.
So it's but basically it's quite messy. There's historically, so yeah, that's us.
So a busy house. You're both working, and you've got two kids,
Yeah.
quite young, in primary school. So there's a lot going on, right?
Yeah.
So basically, I can't quite remember when you first heard about Serenely Sorted. Our kids go to the same school, so we might, I don't know, discussed it in the playground. I can't quite remember. So maybe you could fill in for what you can remember.
Yeah, so I actually remember seeing it on your Facebook before we spoke about it, and it sort of intrigued me. I was like, "Ooh, who is Serenely Sorted?" Then I worked out it was you, and I think then we chatted on the playground quite a bit about it, and obviously on play dates and things, we bouncing stories off each other that perhaps made you realise that maybe I would benefit from being more serenely sorted.
Well, I think we've got a few similar stories actually about like our bookshelves and things like that.
Yeah.
And then you came to one of my Serenely Sorted soirees.
I did.
Where you learned the system. So maybe you could just talk us through a little bit of, that night, and then what happened after that, or anything that particularly resonated for you, or how it went.
Yeah, sure. So the soiree was as we've just said, we talked about the systems before a little bit, but at the soiree it was really good to see everything sort of presented as a whole, and it was also really good to talk to other people as well about their experiences, some of whom were obviously more naturally tidy, and some of whom were also equally messy, which is quite reassuring. And we talked about different ways to store things and obviously we looked at some of the examples that you'd put into place. So there was lots of ideas flowing, and people were talking about how they tackled things and things that worked for them and things that didn't work for them. So came away from the evening sort of just thinking about things a little bit more, thinking how I could take little bits away, because I'm no spring chicken, so I know who I am. I know what I'm able to take on and what I'm not able to take on, and anything huge, there would be no way that I would be able to face it. But I sort of found that I could work with small elements of it and gradually build up to be more organised, more sorted, and less messy.
Yeah, I think hopefully that's something that is a good aspect of Serenely Sorted, is that you don't have to like suddenly like turn out your entire bedroom or your entire kitchen at once and get rid of stuff. You can do one step at a time, and I think hopefully that's what makes it kind of easy to digest in chunks, as it were, and you're not kind of overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, so I mean, after the the evening, I sort of mulled things over for a bit. I didn't get to work straight away. I think I was looking around. You talk about analysing your space, so I wasn't doing that particularly consciously, thinking, oh, I'm analysing. But obviously, I was looking around and sort of found some spaces that I could make more sorted. So, you talk about the top 10 mess makers, and at the soiree, a couple of us said, we've got top spaces that are mess makers, where sort of everything gets dumped. So I decided to go for a space rather than a thing to start with, because that was more of an issue, in our house. So there might have been 50 different types of things in this one space. So to find 50 different spaces, end homes, would have been quite tricky, but to deal with that space, was manageable. So I tackled a bookshelf, and I think I sent you some before and afters, didn't I?
Yeah.
And there's not much different on the shelf. There's not much less on the shelf. But the things that I found on the shelf that were causing it to be messy, like coins and little bits of Lego or bits of toys, a lot of bits of things went straight in the bin. But then things like coins, which foreign coins, 2p coins, 1p coins, that were just gathering dust, and I didn't want to put them in my purse, so it was a mess. So just things like creating, I've got 2 jars on the shelf now, hidden by some really nice plants there's a copper coin jar and a silver coin jar, and that's instantly transformed,
and I think
that
there can be sort of multiple things that, a thing that's a mess maker, but it's just all over the place. And I think for me, the equivalent to that is Katie's hair bobbles and hair clips, they get everywhere.
Yeah.
And actually, I just created an end home for those in her bedroom, because obviously she puts them on down here in the morning, but then takes them off in her bedroom. So, there needs to be a sort of flow back. And I think that, and definitely the coins one for me too. Like we have got a couple of coins end homes in the cupboard, for Breakfast Club and what have you. So, I can definitely hear you on that one. And I think the bookshelf is one of the typical dumping grounds, I think. Well, that was my worst one, because there's not only like little areas in front of the books, but on top of the books, there's another potential dumping ground. And I think that's something there where I've really noticed that has been the massive change from looking at that. So, there's the sort of different aspects of the system. There's the end homes and there's the mindset, and which do you think for you was the sort of hook in?
I think the hook in was how we were talking about this, how I think it's more about the fact that each of the things are sound bites. They are very simple things. End homes, divide and conquer, and those things are so easy to bring back to the forefront of my brain. And I know we had a chat about the idea of the chimp brain, and my chimp brain has historically seen mess and fled from it. It frightens me, it scares me, because I didn't necessarily deal with it very well. So I ran from it. My chimp brain goes into action far quicker than my human brain. But because the concepts are so simple, it enables me to just go straight there. So, if I'm in a hurry and
shortcut, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm in a hurry and I need to get out of the house and I've put my makeup on, I could easily just say, I've got to go, and run away from that mess, and then I'd have a mess to deal with later. Whereas now I just think the end home's there, and I just can just put it in. So it's not necessarily one of the things. It's the simplicity of them that can sort of just jump into my brain when it needs to jump into my brain, because my mess is behavioural. That's all. It's just behaviour, and so the simplicity means that it's much easier for my behaviours to change around stuff.
Yeah, and I think, as I've gone through the weeks and sort of been honing kind of what's my angle, what is it that makes Serenely Sorted different, it definitely is that it's this behavioural change. It's not about how to put things away in a neat way, or really, or anything like that. It's that the fact that now when my, you know, at the end of the homeschool day or whatever, the kitchen table is covered in stuff, but I'm not actually thinking of that as then a tidying task. It's literally a simple, you know,
becomes habitual, doesn't it?
yeah,
It's making it habitual. Some
yes.
people are naturally gifted with habitual tidiness, but I'm not.
And others need a support, which is what Serenely Sorted gives.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the sound bites are something that I'm really pleased with, and you know, the buzzwords, and I love it when people sort of repeat them back to me, if you like, you know, end homes, using one move, and all those things. I think, and I love the kind of analysis you've done, and thinking almost about the behaviour. In fact, Kim, who I spoke to a few weeks ago, said the same thing, because she's actually a psychology teacher, and she's quite interesting to kind of think about why this had resonated with her when, you know, for 20 years she knew she needed to sort of get a bit tidier, but now she's doing it because of Serenely Sorted and just those simple kind of things. You know, sort of retraining your brain, like you said. And I'm going to definitely read that book that you suggested. It's called what?
The Chimp Paradox.
Chimp
Paradox, by Steve Mills, I think. Steve Mills, I think.
Well, there's a book recommendation for me. Not that I'm very good at reading books these days, but so what about your family? What do they think of it all?
If I think about it in the longer term, they don't really, I wouldn't say they notice it, in the sense that they don't know I'm doing it. My husband is aware that it's something that, you know, I'm trying to do, and I've always, for as long as we've been together, for nearly 20 years, I've always wanted to be tidier. So he's aware now, and you know, if I say something, sometimes he might say, "Have you been speaking to Di again?" But they do notice. Everybody loves it when they can find stuff, and everybody loves it when tidying doesn't feel like a difficult task. So I would, you know, things like the boys have their own shoe drawer. That's not a chore to them. They just know to put their shoes in their shoe drawer. So, you know, I feel that there could be flashpoints about certain tidying tasks, like there always are with young children, but where they've got systems in place, they just deal with it. So I think they're getting better at that. But also, everybody loves to be able to find the stamps when you want to stamp, right? Or to be able to find the information, the manual to the cooker, because the cooker's broken. And so people are sort of benefiting from doing that. And also people are benefiting from not feeling, I don't know where to put it, so I'll just put it here. So that's helpful to everyone.
Creates those horrendous piles, isn't it? Or you know, just put it in the corner. And
so I think that I think it would be futile in this house to try to persuade everybody about the benefits of end homes and divide and conquer and using one move face on, because they're not necessarily receptive, but they are receptive to the change in their habits. So I kind of think that, you know, I'm doing you out of a job, because I don't think my children will need to do the Serenely Sorted soirees when they reach, you know, age.
Hopefully they will have already just graduated naturally.
Absolutely, I will have subliminally.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you know, I'm in my relationship, I'm actually the messy one, and I knew I needed to do something, because you know, we like to have this clean lines look in our house, and I was kind of ruining that basically on a daily basis. And you know, so our partners are benefiting from the results of doing this. And you know, other people have said that as well, that they've not really known what it was at the start, and probably were like, what are you doing with that? But then a few weeks later, they're like, oh, I like the fact, you know, that they see they see the results, and then they're like, yeah, I love it, you know. So I've had definitely a few examples of that happening, and that's much better, isn't it? It's like the carrot rather than the stick, you know. And far better for people to go become curious because they can see something's working.
Yeah, I think that we notice it most when every couple of weeks when, you know, someone comes to clean my house for me, and the sort of Tuesday night tidy, which invariably used to be this hellish blot on the fortnight that we would dread. That Tuesday night tidy up is getting easier and easier and easier. And everybody, you know, everyone wins. It's a win-win situation. You know, things like I don't want, you know, I don't want lovely Angie having to spend time moving the shower gel. Well, she doesn't have to anymore because, well, she doesn't. We move it, but we don't have to move it anymore because all the shower gel just goes in all the shower things just go in one box, and it's just so easy to gather it up every day. And so if I see something on the side now, I just pick it up, put it there, and then on a Tuesday night, there's no tidying in the bathroom. It's
exactly
revolutionary.
And, you know, you can't expect those people to. It's almost going to be annoying if they tidy stuff up because then you can't find it. So
yeah,
that definitely works. So do you? I suppose two sort of results questions really. Like, and I think you just answered one really. You know, what difference has it made to the time you spent tidying? Do you feel there's been any effect?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And you know, my house is not completely serenely sorted, but it's getting better all of the time. And so tidying takes up much less of my time, because it's stuff is more manageable.
Yeah. And I think that, well, we've chatted recently because you were doing some serene sorting last weekend, and like it's like you've almost got the headspace because I did this the last couple of weekends. I've attacked each of my kids' rooms one weekend at a time, and I, you know, used to not be able to bear to do that because it felt like a futile task, you know, and also there was so much other stuff to tidy. It felt like you were on this endless Forth Bridge situation, painting away. But like, I actually feel great that I've done that now, and I had the headspace for it because the rest is looking better than it normally does. So
similarly, with one of my big, you know, when I tapped my pile of stuff that was in my bedroom, and historically I'm a bit of a holder on to stuff. So I've got loads of necklaces that are, you know, antique necklaces that I've bought and worn and loved, and then they've perished, but the beads are still there. So in my stuff, in my, you know, for years, I'd tidy things up, and I'd still have these beads, and I didn't know what to do with them. So I'd have piles that I couldn't quite get to zero because I didn't know what to do with these things, like, you know, different. So I just thought, well, I'll just make a bead box. I know it sounds really simple, but having that bead box meant that I could get to the bottom of a box of clutter. And they now, I know exactly where they are, and if I find a bead anywhere in my travels, that's where it will now end up. And you know, there's all sorts of little examples that I could have cited from that declutter. That decluttering was much more manageable. I can remember being a child and not being able to declutter. I remember carrying a duffel bag from my first house to my second house, and the same duffel bag has, you know, I still had it moving into my own home with slightly less stuff in, and bits of, you know, carrying it through. In fact, my hair clip was still in the pile that I cluttered last week, but now I've got a place for it. So
well, some things you've got to keep for sentimental reasons. It's true. So, I mean, I think it does sound like it's been a good experience. I love the fact that it's the behaviour change, and that's what's really, you know, been what's made the difference to you. And that I love the concept of that sort of. It's like almost jump starting or you know, a shortcut. You don't think about tidying. You just go end home. And that it almost eliminates the kind of concept of tidying, and it's more replaced by serene sorting, which is kind of you feel different about. So that's great.
Yeah, definitely. You know, that really has definitely been the biggest thing that I've taken from it. It's a rewiring of my. It's making my human brain jump to it instead of letting my chimp brain tell me to run away.
I can't wait to read this book. Thanks a lot, Natalie, for spending the time with us tonight. For anyone that's just recently joined the call, the live session, I will be loading this up to my YouTube tomorrow morning. So if you've missed some of it, don't worry, it'll be there in the morning. It's been great to hear your story, Natalie. You know, mum of two, busy working mum, and you know, it's really worked for you. And I've actually really enjoyed the journey with you as well, because I've got ideas from you, and it's helped me with the whole concept as well. And I really appreciate you taking the time tonight.
Thank you for all your help, Di.
Thank you. And cheers if you have a glass of wine later. Thank you.
Cheers back.
Bye-bye.
Bye.